Bukayo Saka receives the ball. The Emirates Stadium is holding its breath. One moment, one touch, one finish. And just like that, Arsenal Football Club are in the Champions League final. That is where we are right now. That is the reality of what this football club has achieved. And if you think this is just another good result, just another positive night in North London, then you are not seeing the full picture. Because what happened on this night against Atletico Madrid was not just a victory. It was a statement. It was a declaration. It was Arsenal telling the entire football world that they are not going away, they are not wobbling, and they are absolutely not done. Bukayo Saka scored the only goal of the game, 1-0, second leg, Champions League semi-final. Against one of the most defensively disciplined, tactically ruthless sides in European football, Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid. A team built to grind you down, suffocate your rhythm, and take your hope away 1 minute at a time. And Arsenal handled them completely. Brilliantly. Professionally, the first leg in Madrid had ended 1-1. So Arsenal knew exactly what they were walking into at the Emirates. There was no margin for comfort, no room for error. A slip, a goal conceded, and the tie could swing in an instant. The pressure on this team was enormous. And yet, from the first minute to the last, Mikel Arteta's side looked in control. That control, that calm, that clinical edge, it did not appear by accident. It has been built over years of work, years of struggle, and years of decisions that many people questioned along the way. The stakes. Let us be clear about what was at risk here. Arsenal are currently leading the Premier League table. They are in a position where a historic domestic and European double is genuinely within reach. Lose this tie against Atletico Madrid, and that dream of a Champions League final disappears. The season, despite being strong, would carry the weight of an opportunity missed. The first leg finished 1-1 in Madrid. That result meant Arsenal needed to win or at the very minimum match whatever Atletico scored. The margin for error was razor thin. One defensive mistake, one set piece conceded, and years of progress could have felt suddenly hollow. This is why the performance matters so much. This is why the result carries such enormous weight. Arsenal did not just scrape through. They controlled the tie. They scored when it mattered. And they kept a clean sheet when the pressure was at its most intense. David Raya did not concede. Again, in the Champions League. The evidence on that front is becoming impossible to ignore. Now, before we go deeper into this analysis, I want to say something to everyone watching right now. If you are here for serious, detailed, honest football analysis, then this channel is exactly where you need to be. Hit that subscribe button right now. Because the stories coming out of Arsenal this season are only getting bigger, and you are going to want the full picture on every single one of them. Hit subscribe, turn on the notifications, and let us get back into this. The 41st win and the weight of history. Here is a number that stops you in your tracks. 41. That is the number of wins Arsenal have recorded across all competitions this season. 41 victories. And that number now places this current Arsenal side level with one of the greatest teams in the history of this football club. The only other Arsenal squad to achieve 41 wins in a single season was the 1971 team, 55 years ago. A team that is spoken about in reverent tones by every Arsenal supporter who lived through that era. A team that won the league title by a single point in dramatic, nerve-shredding fashion. A team that also lifted the FA Cup to complete a domestic double that defined a generation. And now, in 2026, Mikel Arteta's Arsenal have matched that record. 41 wins. The same number. And the season is not finished. The situation is extraordinary. The evidence suggests that this Arsenal side is not just having a good season. They are producing numbers and performances that rank alongside the most decorated sides in the club's entire history. That is not an exaggeration. That is not hype. That is what the facts are telling us. And what makes it even more remarkable is the position the club finds itself in right now. Just as that 1971 team went on to win both the league and the FA Cup, this current Arsenal side is chasing the Premier League title and is now one game away from winning the Champions League. The parallels are stunning. The pressure on this team to deliver is equally stunning. The decision that changed everything. Now let us talk tactics. Because no analysis of what Arsenal have done in these last 3 games is complete without addressing what Mikel Arteta changed in his midfield and why it has had such a profound impact. The situation is this. For much of the season, Martin Zubimendi was a key figure in Arsenal's midfield. The Spaniard started the season well for the club and was trusted by Arteta. But over recent months, his influence began to fade. Questions started to emerge. His effectiveness dropped, and the team at times looked less assured because of it. Then Arteta made a decision. He moved Declan Rice into a deeper number 6 role. He brought Myles Lewis-Skelly into the midfield alongside Rice, and Zubimendi found himself on the bench. The change was almost immediate in its impact. Across the last 3 matches, Arsenal beat Fulham comfortably, benefited from Manchester City dropping points, and then eliminated Atletico Madrid over 2 legs to reach the Champions League final. 3 matches, 3 transformed performances, 1 tactical adjustment. Jamie Carragher, speaking after the Atletico win, was direct in his assessment. He said that Declan Rice was fantastic and that he has been the best player across both legs against Atletico Madrid. He went further, acknowledging that Arsenal had been wobbling in the 3 or 4 weeks before this run of form. And he was clear that the decision to move Rice deeper has had a huge influence on turning things around. That assessment carries real weight. Because when you watch Arsenal in these last 3 games, the difference in the midfield is visible. Rice in the number 6 role provides a platform. He is disciplined, he is physical, he reads the game intelligently, and he gives the players around him the freedom to express themselves. He protects the defense. He recycles possession. He controls tempo. And alongside him, Myles Lewis-Skelly has been outstanding. It is worth pausing on that for a moment. Lewis-Skelly started in midfield for only the 2nd time in his senior career, in a Champions League semi-final against Atletico Madrid. And he looked comfortable. He looked assured. He looked like he belonged at that level. That tells you something important about the culture and the confidence inside this Arsenal squad right now. Young players are being trusted in enormous moments, and they are delivering. The situation now is that Arteta has what looks like a settled midfield formula. Rice sitting deep, Lewis-Skelly alongside him, and Eberechi providing creativity and forward momentum. That combination, based on what has been seen across these 3 games, is the formula that Arteta must continue with going forward. And for Zubimendi, the message from recent weeks is clear. He needs to remain patient. He needs to work his way back into consideration. But right now, the midfield without him is functioning at a higher level. That is just the reality. Viktor Gyokeres and the humble moment. Now let us address something that takes genuine honesty to say out loud. Viktor Gyokeres, the striker who arrived at Arsenal in the summer carrying enormous expectation, enormous pressure, and for a significant portion of this season, genuine concern. The honest assessment is this. For a long stretch of the campaign, Gyokeres was not producing at the level that was needed. The concern was not unfair. When a club invests in a striker to be the final piece of the puzzle, to be the player who takes you from nearly to actually, the scrutiny is intense. And Gyokeres, through much of the early and middle part of the season, was not fully convincing. But something changed around the turn of the year, and the numbers now tell a very different story. 17 of his 24 goals and assists this season have come in 2026 alone. 17. In the second half of the season, that is a player who has found his form at exactly the right moment. That is a player who is now contributing in the biggest games, in the biggest moments, when the stakes are at their highest. Against Atletico Madrid, Gyokeres was outstanding. He held the ball up well. He brought teammates into play. He made intelligent runs in behind the defense. He was unlucky not to score himself when a shot flew over the bar, but his overall contribution was exactly what Arsenal needed from their striker in a high-pressure, high-intensity European tie. The situation is now one of real excitement. A striker who spent much of the season building towards this moment is now firing at peak capacity. He is hitting form precisely when the Champions League final is approaching and the Premier League title is within Arsenal's grasp. The timing could not be more important. The Berta and Simeone confrontation. Let us now address what happened on the touchline in the closing minutes of the match, because it adds a layer of human drama to an already extraordinary night. Berta is Arsenal's sporting director. He is 54 years old. And before joining Arsenal, he spent over a decade at Atletico Madrid. He joined Atletico initially as technical director in 2013. He became their sporting director 4 years later. He remained in that role until early January 2025, when he reached an agreement with Atletico to terminate his contract. Arsenal then announced his appointment, and barely a year later, he found himself on the touchline at the Emirates, watching his new club eliminate his former club from the Champions League. The tension between Berta and Atletico manager Diego Simeone was always going to be present in this tie. They know each other well. They worked together for years. There is history between them. And in the 95th minute of this match, that history boiled over. As the match ball went out of play and ended up between the dugouts, a confrontation developed on the touchline. Simeone appeared to push Berta away from the 4th official. The pair had to be separated. Both Arteta and Simeone received yellow cards in added time for their behavior on the touchline. The commentators on the night noted that there had rarely been so many people gathered on the touchline in a single moment. But here is what tells you everything about the mindset of Arsenal's sporting director. Minutes after being shoved by the man who used to be his colleague, Berta was on the Emirates pitch celebrating with the Arsenal staff. He pumped his fist in the air. He embraced members of the coaching team. He walked through the crowd of Arsenal staff with the look of a man who understood exactly what this moment meant. For Berta, this is a deeply personal achievement. He helped assemble the squad that denied his former club a place in the Champions League final. He played a central role in building an Arsenal team capable of competing at the very highest level of European football. And the confrontation with Simeone, rather than unsettling him, seemed only to make the celebration sweeter. The evidence suggests that Berta's relationship with Atletico has clearly moved on. His loyalty now is entirely with Arsenal. And in the most dramatic, visible, public way possible, he showed that on the Emirates pitch after the final whistle. Arteta and the journey. Now let us step back and look at the broader picture. Because the journey that Mikel Arteta has taken this football club on is one that deserves to be understood in its full context. When Arteta took over at Arsenal, the club was in a state of disarray. The squad was broken. Players who had no business representing a club of Arsenal's stature were occupying positions in the team. The identity of the club, the belief, the ambition, all of it had eroded. And Arteta began to rebuild, ruthlessly and systematically. He cleared out players who were not at the required level. He placed faith in young academy talents and gave them opportunities that shaped their careers. He implemented a philosophy and a style that asked enormous commitment from everyone inside the building. The process was not smooth. It was not always pretty. There were arguments, doubts, and moments of genuine frustration, but Arteta held the line. He trusted the process. And now in 2026, the results are staggering. His own words after the Atletico tie capture the mentality that has driven this journey. He said it is very tough and difficult, but the alignment on desire and ambition within the club has been total. He acknowledged that things have to go your way at times. But he also made clear that the work, passion and belief that has gone into this campaign has now been rewarded with what he called an incredible day. And that incredible day is a Champions League final in Budapest. The ground at the Emirates was shaking at full time. The speakers played and the fans celebrated with their players. That image of a stadium united in joy, of players and supporters sharing a moment of pure, hard-earned happiness is what all of the struggle has been building towards. A team that has been written off, turned into memes and dismissed by pundits throughout its journey is now in a Champions League final. The noise and the narratives that have surrounded this club for years can, as the evidence now clearly suggests, be firmly set aside. What comes next? The situation for Arsenal going into the final weeks of this season is one of genuine historic possibility. They are leading the Premier League table. They have 3 games left in the league. And they are now in the Champions League final. The 1971 Arsenal side that this current team has equalled in terms of wins went on to complete a domestic double, winning the league and the FA Cup. If this current Arsenal side wins the Premier League and the Champions League, what they will have achieved would be on an entirely different scale. A scale that no Arsenal generation has ever reached before. The facts that are in front of us right now point to a club that is operating at peak efficiency in the most important moments of the most important season in recent memory. The tactical adjustments are working. The key players are in form. The squad has depth and belief, and the manager has the experience, now proven at the highest level of European football, to handle everything that the final stages of this season will demand. 3 games in the Premier League, 1 game in Europe, and history waiting at the other end. That is the reality. That is the situation. And that is what every Arsenal supporter, every neutral watching this unfold, and every critic who ever doubted this club needs to sit with right now. Closing thoughts. Arsenal Football Club are in the Champions League final. Their sporting director celebrated on the pitch after being shoved by a former colleague. Their tactical reshape in midfield has transformed their performances at the most critical moment of the season. Their striker is hitting the kind of form that wins trophies. Their young players are stepping up in semi-finals. Their goalkeeper is keeping clean sheets in Europe with remarkable consistency. And their manager is guiding them through a campaign that could end in a historic double, the likes of which this club has never seen before. The world tried to write Arsenal off. The pundits had their doubts. The memes were made. The narratives were built. And Mikel Arteta, his players, his staff and his sporting director have responded by reaching the Champions League final and sitting at the top of the Premier League table with the finish line in sight. This is not hype. This is not hope. this is what is happening right now in real time. And if you are watching this and you are not yet subscribed to this channel, then now is the moment, because this story is not finished. The biggest chapters are still to come. And I will be here breaking it all down, giving you the honest, detailed, serious analysis that this club and this season deserve. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and let us see this through together, because Arsenal are not done yet,